Hello everyone, my name is Muhammad Ali, CEO of Core Gems, and in this video we'll be figuring out how you can test to see if your silver jewelry and coins are real silver or fake, if they're plated silver or filled silver. So the first test we're going to be using is the look, touch, feel test. Now the look, touch, feel, also known as the LTF test, involves looking, touching, and feeling the piece to see if it is indeed silver. So first we'll start by looking. So, is it light, shiny, gray metal? Metallic? Yes and yes. So, definitely passes that test. And the second thing we look for are stamps and hallmarks. So, sometimes the coins will say 0.999 or 9999 fine silver. That'll be a great indicator that it is indeed pure silver, but silver coins that only contain about 80% silver, what's called coin silver, often will not be marked silver at all. Jewelry must be marked if it is made in Canada, the US, and pretty much every other nation. Right over here you will see that it is hallmarked 925 silver. That means it contains 92.5% pure silver. See that right there? .925. When you see that, that means it should be silver. But the problem is, especially if you don't know the source or if you don't know whether it's a legitimate manufacturer who made it, that may end up being fake. That may end up being a fake hallmark. So you need to keep testing. But usually, if it's hallmarked, it is good. The next is to get a test of the density. Silver has a specific gravity of 10.49 grams per centimeter cubed. That doesn't really make sense to the naked, to the untrained ear, but if you have a silver coin that you know to be silver and you compare the general feel to another coin that you think might be silver, it can get you a pretty good idea. That's pretty much the only situation where it can be used. It's fairly unreliable since we may not be able to gauge correctly. The next is the clink sound. I've seen this all around. Silver makes a distinct clink, but other metals can make this same clinking sound. Also, copper and brass have a very similar density to silver, so I do not recommend the clink sound or the general feel sound test at all. They're very unreliable, but they are all around the internet as recommended methods, so I thought I would bring them up. The final element of the look, touch, feel test is to feel for chipped silver plate. So usually in jewelry you will be able to feel, and you'll feel little bits of metal that I've chipped away. Obviously both of these are pure silver, so you won't have that, but usually you'll see little bits flaking off and you'll feel a little bit of unevenness in the metal. That indicates silver plate. That's it for the look, touch, feel test. Again, not the most reliable method, but gets you a good idea. The next test that we have is a little bit more reliable, but still not the best. It's called the density test. And this would work great if you had a perfect scientific laboratory with all the top-notch equipment. But since we are usually operating out of our homes, this will only give us a good idea. So silver has a known density of 10.49 grams per centimeter cubed. We will have to start out by weighing the piece or pieces of silver to find the weight in grams. Next, we will find the piece's volume in centimeters cubed. Pieces or pieces apostrophe at the end because it might be using multiple pieces. And then finally we'll calculate the piece's density. Density is equal to mass divided by volume, grams divided by centimeters cubed, and that will give us the density of our pieces. And then we can compare to the density, the known density of silver, to see if it is likely a real piece of silver or pieces of silver. So step one is to weigh it. Grabbing my scale here. The more accurate of a scale you have, the better this test will go. I'm using a gemstone scale. This is quite reliable, quite a good scale. Turn it on. I'm weighing 10 pieces of silver. And I'm going to do this again off camera on a more stable surface. This is just for demonstration. And then I'll use the off camera weighing. But this is just to demonstrate. That looks like it's too much weight for that scale, so I'll use a different scale here. Okay, it's unstable surface. There we go. So my 10 silver coins weigh 234 grams. I weighed it again off camera on a more stable surface, and again I got 234 grams. And now we need to figure out the volume. So you measure the volume going by the lowest point, the meniscus, the lowest point of the water level as it touches the measure right there. So although it looks like it's over 250 on camera, I'm looking at it from the meniscus and is right at 250, maybe 255, but a pretty good idea. I think I'm going to go with 255 because it is just a bit over the line. Again, you measure it at the lowest point, get to eye level, and measure at the lowest point of the water line. The point that dips down, measured at the lowest point. Wait till the water stops moving, and then add your silver or suspected silver. You don't want any water to come out. That shouldn't have happened. I think it's only a few milliliters though. Okay, going back to the meniscus, and we are right at about 285, I want to say. We're now at 285 milliliters. Okay, after putting it down and getting a better look and looking back in the video and seeing what the water line was actually at, I determined it wasn't 35. It was actually closer to about 23 milliliters. So 23, and 1 milliliter of water equals 1 centimeter cubed. Same thing, it's volume, right? So 23 centimeters cubed. And again, we're actually looking at coin silver here, so we'll be using the density of coin silver, which is 80% silver and 20% copper, so 10.18 grams per centimeter cubed. So let's plug everything in now. So we know the mass, 234 grams. And we know the volume of 23 centimeters. We get 10.17 grams per centimeter cubed, extremely close to our 10.18 grams per centimeter cubed. Ideally, you don't want to use a measuring cup like this. You want to buy a graduated cylinder, which has all the markers for every single milliliter. And you can test much smaller quantities with that. You can get it off Amazon or eBay. Make sure you have a good testing thing, because it took me a while to figure out that that was 23. I had to look very, very carefully and try it a few different times. But it will give you a good idea. The larger the piece of silver is, the less room there is for a little bit of extra or under. Like say, for example, if you pull out a few milliliters of water while you're putting in the coins, there's less of a chance that will impact the final amount. So we determined that, so we compare this density here to the density of coin silver. It is most likely real in this case. So not the best test. Depends on how good your equipment is. If your equipment is good, then it could be a very good test. If your equipment isn't great, and so for this test to work, you need to know two things. You need to know the purity of the silver you're testing, because pure silver will be more dense than coin silver. And if you have sort of a silver alloy that's mixed with copper and brass, only 50% silver or 58.5% purity, or sterling silver, then you need to adjust the expected density accordingly. And then when you know, then you need to test the weight and the water displacement or volume accurately, and then the calculation is quite easy. So as long as you're able to do these two parts easily, accurately, then this is a reliable test, and you know the purity accurately. Finally, the last test we'll be looking at is the cash for gold or pawn shop test. The professional testing test just requires that you take your expected piece, your suspected piece of silver coin or jewelry or bullion, to a reputable cash for gold pawn shop, jeweler, metals dealer, precious metals dealer. If they say, we buy and sell gold and silver, they will almost definitely have the accurate testing equipment, and usually they'll test it for free. They'll give you a quote. You don't have to sell it. But they'll tell you how much silver is in it, how much gold is in it. So make sure you check the online reviews. If it's not a reputable place, they might tell you have less silver. They might tell you it's not real silver. So make sure you check the online reviews, and you're going to a reputable shop. Get a second opinion. ask around. Again, it doesn't usually cost any money to get a quote. You can ask around as much as you want. They'll give you prices for what they think your silver is worth as well. They have all the testing equipment under the sun, and you can get a few different opinions. And one might say it's 92.5% pure silver. One might say it's 90% pure silver. So get a few different opinions. Ask the type of testing methods they use. So there's two main types of testing methods that are reliable. One is they will scratch the silver against a piece of slate, and then they will drop a few drops of acid. I've left down a video that explains that process in detail in the description below, so check that out. That's the common test. That's called the acid test. And then the second and most reliable method is they use some sort of electronic imaging machine that x-rays the silver and gives you a very, very, very accurate reading. It can tell exactly how much plate there is. It can tell exactly what other metals are in there, if it's copper, if it's brass in there, if it's a brass base with silver plate, if it's coin silver, 80% silver, 20% copper. It can tell you exactly everything about that silver. And a pawn shop with that level of testing equipment or a jewelry store or metals dealer will be able to give you the most accurate reading. And then ask what discount. So if you are looking to sell your silver, ask what the discount is against the spot price. If you just search on the internet for the spot price of silver, it'll let you know, and then you can compare and you can see, like, if they're offering you $20 an ounce and silver is currently trading at $22 an ounce, then they're giving you $2 less per ounce. So there's a pretty deep discount there. But if they're offering you $21.50, that's only 50 cents off the spot price. That's a good price. All right. If you're testing huge amounts of silver, you have a bunch of testing equipment. You have a bunch of pieces to test. You have just lots of chains. You bought a bulk lot. You went to an estate sale or something, and you just have a ton of pieces. Then I recommend buying a reputable. Once again, check the online reviews, and you may want to also test with a jewelry store or pawn shop. But get a testing kit, and you can use an acid test kit at home, and be extremely careful. Do all of your research. I'm not advising that anybody do anything that they feel is unsafe, because that does contain very, very strong acid that can be very damaging. So don't do anything risky. Don't do anything. Make sure you're being safe. But one of those testing kits will allow you to test large quantities of silver fairly accurately at home. And then if you want a second opinion, you can go to a pawn shop or jewelry store. And that's it. So throughout this video, we've looked at the look, touch, feel method, which is fairly unreliable. But if you have stamps or hallmarks on your silver, you can look those up online, see exactly what they mean, and they'll give you a good idea of whether it is indeed silver or not. The clinking and the fog test and all those methods are very unreliable, and just generally guessing whether the density feels right is unreliable, because again, other metals like copper and brass have very similar densities to silver. The density method does work, but it depends on how well you do the test and how accurate your testing equipment is. And it's generally not recommended, because you can never be 100% accurate with the testing, and you may not know what the purity of the silver is that you're testing anyway, so you don't even know what the benchmark is that you should be comparing with. Lastly, I would highly recommend taking it to a jeweler or pawn shop or anything like that. They have all the equipment, they have the experience, they can test it, they will likely know the purity, they'll likely know what the hallmarks mean, and they can give you a lot more information. Your piece may be worth more, maybe worth less. That's why you want to get a few opinions. If you think one of them is trying to undersell you or scam you, then you can just go to another one. You don't have to sell to them, right? So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you had a great experience. One thing though that I must say about the jewelers and pawn shops and metals dealers, especially if you are in a third world country, but even in the States and in Europe and in Canada, this does happen. Make sure you take good pictures and videos and have all your paperwork of your silver and gold before going in, because they might do a bait and switch. They might if you have a bunch of chains, they might just pull one chain out. So make sure you know exactly what you have going in, and then check to make sure they gave you everything back. It could even just be a simple mistake, but like that way you can make sure that they're not taking any of your silver or gold. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. And thank you again, and please like, comment, and subscribe.